In this episode, we'll discuss the following. What are the biggest mistakes made in congruency reviews? What would a CAPA consist of? Do institutions want to allocate funds for additional quality checks? Do contracts need IRB congruency checks? Who should do a congruency review? What errors occur in a congruency review besides human error? Our guest is Istvan Fekete, Director at Huron. And I am Darshan Kulkarni, Principal Attorney at the Kulkarni Law Firm. I focus my attention on FDA-regulated companies and their service providers, including issues involving medical affairs, clinical research, and drug advertising. Let's get into it.
What do you find are the biggest mistakes people make in congruency reviews?
Really, it's human error. There are an infinite number of opportunities for a human to make a mistake. Like, imagine building a schedule of events for a 30-arm study and all the different ways in which you could misclick a button or put something incorrectly, right? And the other part of it is understanding what is happening in the protocol, right? I think if I look at the pharmaceutical industry, the biggest service that they could do in terms of this congruency review is homogenization about how protocols are written, where the information is, what they look like, right? How the schedule of events are presented. But the more homogenized you can make the format and writing of these protocols, the easier it becomes for all those study activation steps.
Do you find yourself doing quote unquote CAPAs for addressing this human error problem? And what does your CAPA consist of?
So every piece of this process has two sets of eyes on, right? So you have the person working on it directly, and then you have another senior member of the team who is vetting it after the fact, right? And then you do a final check at the point of the process where you want to say this is final, right? So that's really kind of the risk mitigation program that we've put into place.
Now, do you find that sites, even large academic institutions, do not want to pay for two sets of eyes plus an additional quality check? If so, how do you address that problem?
This is going to sound like a self-serving answer, but I don't know if you can address that problem at the university level. And I'll say it because it's going to take a lot more funding. These sites are under increased financial pressure in the current climate. And so I don't see an ability for these institutions to have enough staff to institute a quality assurance program of this nature, right? And I think that's one of the advantages in engaging with vendors is they're already set up to have those resources factored into their costs. And when you don't have a quality assurance process, there are going to be more errors. So, universities and academic medical centers, if they want to have this process in place, either they have to devote a lot more funding to the process, which, like I said, has historically been something very difficult to accomplish, or they need to outsource to a vendor that already has that process in place.
If you need assistance with your clinical trial agreements, call me at 302-252-6959.
Now, you talk about these increased errors. Do you believe that there should be maybe like an IRB for contracts that just reviews for congruency checks? So you do your studies, you try to reconcile to the extent you can, but someone else from a compliance standpoint comes in after the fact, and all they do is congruency checks.
In an ideal program, you have some group that is dedicated solely to that congruency review. Now, what becomes one of the difficulties with that? The amount of people that exist that understand protocols, contracts, informed consent, clinical trial management system, calendars and financial console builds, budget and coverage analysis is like nobody, right? If you find one of these people, pay them $1 million a year, you found yourself a unicorn, right?
Or just hire me.
All right, there you go. Hire Darshan. There you go. You have a unicorn right here, right? And so one of the things we try to develop at our company are these generalists who can do each of these different aspects of a study, because that creates a lot of efficiencies in the process, right? When there's less handoffs and one person is just handing it off to themselves. But it's really hard to develop that technical knowledge base in people. So yes, ideally you would have that process, but one, you have to pay for it. And two, you have to staff for it, right? And those are the two pieces that the sites are going to struggle with.
Who should be doing the congruency review? A clinician or a lawyer? Or someone from the legal department like yourself?
I would look at it as a regulatory function, right? So kind of in between legal and a clinician, but really kind of similar to kind of the conflicts of interests, process, right? Because what this person is doing is taking all these different work streams and making sure that they're aligned, so they're not exposing the university to any of the risk you talked about, or really where you see this manifest itself is downstream billing problems, right?
Addressing the question of increased errors, what are the two other types of errors that you'd see outside human error in these types of congruency reviews? So number one is human error.
I think a difficult position universities get themselves in is when they allow robust study team input on their Medicare coverage analysis designations, right? Oftentimes, nuances and protocols that make these kind of determinations not obvious, right? But if what you're doing is you're allowing your study teams to unilaterally edit these designations, and you put yourself where in the same disease group, same patient population, on one study you have one designation for this given procedure, on another study you have a different designation, you can get yourselves into trouble there. So I think a lack of consistency in designations and a lack of consistency in how your organization deals with NCDs and LCDs, that's a big one that you see. And then the other thing is protocols written in a way where it's unclear when a given procedure is being given to a patient, right? So like, it's hard to figure out, is this lab research or is this lab really standard of care? Is this pregnancy test research or is this pregnancy test really standard of care? Because depending on which patient visit it's occurring on, that will impact whether it's research or standard of care, right? And sometimes that is unclear, which makes it so that you have one assumption in your reading of the protocol, you go down a path, and then once you're so far along in a path, hopefully you realize, oh, wait, no, that's not how these visits are happening. And so that's another common trap that you see sites fall into.
If you need assistance with your clinical trial agreements, contact us at Darshan at